Hey gang, it's time to have a word about the Spyderco K2. So, let's get into the facts and I'll tell you what the wins and what the fails are of a knife like this. So is there any knife like this I've got? It's huge. That's the first thing you need to get your head around. I bought this knife in the knife centre sale for $150 US. By the time I got it here to Australia, it ended up being about 250 Australian, including shipping. It's a lot of knife for the money, even at a higher sum like that. However, there is no way I ever would have spent the retail price, which was $400 US on it. So the knife sale was a pretty good thing for me, really. So the facts of this knife, designed by Farid Mehr. It's kind of like a Persian-y, Middle Eastern inspired sort of sword-looking folder. The specs are, it's got a 115mm blade, so it's 4.5 inches, just over 4.5 inches. Cutting edge 4.25, so that's from there to there. The overall length is 5.45, the overall length is 10 inches. The closed length is 5.45 inches, so 138mm closed to 154mm open. Almost a foot long, people. The blade's made of CPM 10V premium tool steel. It's a 3.5mm thick blade. It's a plain edge, and the titanium handles, just that, and it's just your plain grey titanium. It's made in Taiwan in the Spyderco's Taichung factory, where a lot of their really sort of experimental or really high-end knives come from. And this knife weighs 6.2 ounces or 176 grams, so roughly twice the weight and really twice the size of your average, 3-inch blade, 3-ounce weight type EDC knife. So let's get into what I like about this knife. So first of all, with this knife, you get one of the best steels you can get for a knife right now in terms of toughness and in terms of edge holding. This is CPM 10V is particularly impressive stuff. In some pretty compelling edge cut tests, which I'll link below actually, from a really good YouTuber getting some data on these steels. It's just a notch below the brand spanking new steel Maximet. So it's, in terms of cutting without needing sharpening, it's really up there. The general quality of this knife is really good. Like the Taichung factory, design aspects aside, the Taichung factory consistently put out just really well made, well put together knives. So you're not going to get any wobble, you're not going to get any like scuff marks, you're not going to get, the grinds are going to be done really well. The fit and finish just in general is going to be excellent, and you're going to get a really good factory edge as well. I get really good factory edges from the Taichung Spydercos. This one's come about as sharp as my Spyderco Mantra, so properly scary sharp. This full flat grind just makes it a complete slicing beast, and of course a blade this huge can really handle pretty much any cutting task that you want handled. Another really good aspect to me about this knife is that it's super fun. If you don't have a great deal of massive folders, having one is a really interesting experience, getting your first one like this one was me. I used to think my ZT-0909 was a really big knife, and this absolutely dwarfs it. Let's go into some comparisons now. Let's have a look at this knife versus just a whole bunch of EDC knives, perhaps against a mini Griptilian, against a ZT-0909, sure, why not, against a Benchmade 940 perhaps, and then look at it against some fixed blade knives. As you'll see, it's about the same length as a lot of small to mid-sized fixed blades. So let's look against a Falkniven F1, positively dwarfing it, and then next to the Gerber Strong Arm, which actually fits in at about the same size, just a little bit heavier due to its bigger handle. And then let's look at it against something to make this knife look small, is the Cold Steel Trailmaster. So there you go there as well. So it's a big, fun, silly knife that actually does have some usability involved as well. It's it's refined enough to be able to use it, what you use a knife for, which is cutting things and slicing things. And funnily enough, the blade actually does carry really well in your pocket for being so huge, comparatively speaking, of course. Some of the huge cold steel folders, they're thick this way as well, and while that would provide a bit more of a tactical grip, they are real beasts in the pocket. This has that really thin two-sided titanium handle. The slabs and the steel, it makes for an overall thickness of only about 9 millimeters, so it's about, but perhaps with the clip it's about 1 and a bit centimeters wide, so really not too much you're going to get hung up on. And even in the pocket itself, it's not super wide either, so you can fit something else in the pocket with this knife. So really quite pleasantly surprising, because I did carry this knife around home obviously, and around private places as a sort of an everyday carry function, and it didn't do too badly. Another good thing about it is it's really easy to maintain. It's very simple construction, 2 slabs, frame lock here, and then a nice sort of cool looking rounded back spacer, lanyard hole spacer, and then the pivot, and that's and the stop pin there, and those are the things that are really holding it together, so you can really see straight through the knife. So if you are going to use this for an outdoors or sort of woodworking type knife, you shouldn't have any issues keeping it clean. And another cool thing is that it's a big heavy blade, but it is really quite smooth, so you can flip it open without too many issues with your thumb. And unlike some of the Tai Chung knives, the spider hole isn't completely razor sharp either, so you can give it a good sort of hoist from your finger, and it's not too bad at all. So there's a lot of good points. There's a lot of good things going on with this knife. A lot of wins. I'd say it's more winning than failing, this knife. But let's get on to what the things are that I would sort of say it's a bit of a fail. So design points aside, the things I don't like about this knife are it's right hand only. You can't move this pocket clip at all. So the pocket clip is just one side, and even the opening hole is just from the right hand as well. So it's got the scallop for the right-handed person to open it, but not one for the left-handed. So the left-hander does have to sort of climb over the lock a little bit, and it's just not made for him. So that's a little bit exclusive, which as opposed to inclusive for the left-handers, which is, it's not great because they still make up 10% of the knife community by average. Now, another thing that mainly people call this knife out on is it's a titanium frame lock without a steel contact point. So it has some lock stick, and it has a really positively engaged lock. The lock pretty much covers almost the entire blade tang there. Now, is that a criticism? Well, Spyderco actually explain this. They say because this is such a big and potentially hard to handle knife, they say they've done this knowingly to make it encouraged to be a two-handed opening and closing knife. So we're not supposed to be doing all of our cool little, shaking tricks with it. That's in the official documentation, and it's on the Knife Center site as well. It's a note from Spyderco about that. So, but in my opinion, though, it's still a little bit of a sticking point, pardon the pun, just to perhaps not have had that steel contact point, because it is, even now after about probably 4 or 5 days of really opening and closing the knife and using it a lot, putting some Sharpie on, that wears off. All the sort of stuff that you do, you can put Sharpie on the blade tang, that makes the lock go a bit slicker on it, but that wears off, and it's still probably, I'd still say it's more of a fault than a knowing addition to the knife. So those are the two things that I would say are shortcomings of the knife. The rest of it is just kind of what it is. It is what it is, the knife. It's a big-ass knife, and big-ass knives, simply being a big knife isn't a fail, and simply being in Australia where you're not really supposed to carry knives, let alone enormous murdery knives, I'm not really going to slight the knife for that, because really what it's doing is just being a quite successful, really large knife. And if you were someone who could carry this knife in public, perhaps, with more than just an EDC roll in hand, it'd probably do your job quite well, especially for this really, really good price. Another more opinion-y type thing, rather than what's just, I feel an outright fault, is I wouldn't have minded if they'd put a bit more bedazzling on this display face of the knife. It's quite a bland looking blade. It's kind of got a, when you open it, it's quite distinct looking because of that cool trailing point there. A trailing point, sorry, that means that the point goes back up, so it's a sort of a reverse recurve. As you can see, there's the dip here, as opposed to, say, I'll show a picture of a drop point knife compared to it where the point just kind of gradually cambers down. So trailing point makes it look quite distinctive open, but when it's closed, it's a bit dull looking, I must admit. Perhaps even just if you did a custom job and anodized these handles, perhaps put a shade of green or blue on them, that might look pretty cool. The pocket clip is about as good as you can get for a huge knife like this. It actually carries pretty well in the pocket. But again, it's sort of neutralized by it having no option to switch or go, tip up carry or anything like that. Another thing that, again, is probably going to be in the eye of the handler, the beholder, so to speak, is that this might not be as grippy as you want it for a huge knife like this. You might want some jimping, whereas what Spyderco give you is actually quite a nice, smooth thumb. I guess it's not a thumb ramp, it's just a thumb placement area that's really rounded over. And I really like it for doing, a few cuts in a row. Jimping, I find, can often be, while it ensures grip, it can actually make your finger less comfortable. So I'm really not too bothered by this addition whatsoever. And I'm not too bothered by the lack of sort of jimping here or jimping back here. I think, in my opinion, the ergonomics of the knife, it's a big enough knife to have plenty to hold on to. So I think it was a fine or a fair choice for them to have forgoed the jimping, in my opinion. You can sort of use a couple of different grips on the knife. It works fine in forward or reverse grip. And of course, if you do need to sort of swing and slice a bit, you can use it like sort of as a choke back grip and actually swing it around. I cut all sorts of things with this knife, and a blade this big and this made of a fine steel like this will cut anything for you for a long, long time. And I think the grip they've given you is enough, but I would understand if, in your opinion, you wanted a little bit more either contouring or machining this way, or perhaps just reduction of the square shoulders that the knife does have, or perhaps a bit of jimping added. But that's probably something that you'll need to decide when you get it in hand. I think it's very much in line with the sort of spare design of this knife, which I'm probably really not going to class as a win or a fail. So overall, this knife is a crazy cutter. It's probably one of the best cutters I've ever had, especially for a pocket knife, even including some fixed blade knives. This is a really overdone, huge knife that is not acceptable for everyday carry in Australia, but it is definitely acceptable for work. It will still work really hard for you. It's a hard use sort of frame lock folder with good lock engagement. It's not going to come undone on you. It's, in my opinion, got a good comfortable grip, and a knife with this flat grind, this super sharp edge and this belly will cut through anything you need it to, really. I cut through not only fruit, I did a bit of a bottle test, shitloads of cardboard with it, I've done garden hose, Kevlar rope, and really all you need to do after it with this steel is, and it's quite easy to sharpen because there's no real silly things going on with the edge, all the silly stuff's for this reserved for the back here. You just need a stropper, and this 10V just comes straight back, if it was even degrading, which it probably wasn't even, but it'll still shave hair after doing all those tasks just with minimal maintenance, as long as you keep on the maintenance. And just as a little side point, the flat spine will also strike a fire still once you pass this rounded off thumb section. So there you go. The Farid K2, I really like it and I'm keeping it, and I'm just going to use it as a reference against probably all my other knives when I review, because it's nice to have a big silly knife, a bit like how it's nice to have a big silly fixed blade knife in the Trailmaster. It's good and I like it, and it's silly and it's not practical for daily carry, but then it's extremely practical when you need to cut something that's a bit more on the hardcore side. Conflicting thoughts, but a really good knife in my opinion. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.